So, hello and welcome to Salonpreneur Magazine, the podcast. On this episode, I'm talking to Rebecca Day, and we're going to be talking about, so I've always put my little magazine up, Salonpreneur's winter edition. And Rebecca Day, our HR specialist, has a lovely article all about employment law 101 and about probationary reviews. And this is kind of, well, first of all, welcome, Rebecca.
Hello, Sue. Lovely to be on as always.
Yes, I know. I love these little chats because I think it just goes, we go off on tangents, we talk about bits of the article, but then we also get to talk about some other stuff. And we know we've got other bits coming that aren't in this article that are going to be HR driven. So yeah, this article is about probationary review. And we know, like, right at the last minute, we had to do a bit of an update, didn't we?
Because last minute editing.
Yeah, a bit of last minute editing, because of government U-turns. And it's a positive, that for us was a really positive U-turn, wasn't it? Because probationary periods were literally going to be disappearing, weren't they? And we now, so it's gone. Well, if you explain what had happened,
sure,
because I'll put the wrong words in the place.
So currently, the law is that to claim unfair dismissal, you have to have 2 years service. It's not for everything. I won't go into that today, but you have a day one right to make other claims in terms of racial discrimination, sexual discrimination, age discrimination, disability discrimination. But for an unfair dismissal case, usually you had to have 2 years before you could make that claim. So the government very helpfully announced that they were going to abolish the 2 year protection period and that everybody would have day one rights to make an employment tribunal claim for unfair dismissal. So
the whole world
held his breath, went like that and started to scream. So after consultation, they then did a U-turn, as you said, just before we were about to go to print with the magazine, to say that they were going to bring it down or bring it up, I should say, so that you could have a 6-month probationary period. It's better news.
Yes, it's
and realistically, you should be able to work out whether someone has the skills, behaviours, and is performing to the required standards within that 6 months period.
Because I think I know to anybody that has ever employed, as you know, a day one unfair dismissal, so if you get rid of someone on day two, they can literally take you to tribunal. And I mean, I know in my experience, you need time to make those decisions, don't you? And to actually give for them to have a chance to prove themselves, and for you to have a chance to observe whether they fit, and to be, basically hung over out to dry by the government to not have any opportunity to do that without being called out for it. Business owners. Well, yeah. Anyway, so I'm sure from your perspective that people you speak to are quite grateful that change came in.
Yes, they absolutely are. Whether somebody would be successful in an unfair dismissal claim is another matter. But in terms of time and money and angst in defending it, you obviously need to avoid that.
Yeah.
But yes, everybody is sort of breathing a bit of a sigh of relief in the U-turn. So it's just about now putting the right processes in place.
And so when does the new legislation hit for that 6-month period?
1st of January 2027. So you've got some time to put your preparations in place and make those changes.
Yeah. That's good, because I think this is the thing, isn't it? I think everything, especially when it comes to like proper legislation and law, they do try to give everyone time to catch up and make sure they've got everything ready. So it is just now an opportunity, isn't it, for people, if they are an employer, to make sure that they are using their probation periods wisely, and getting, I mean, even to a degree, getting some practice in on making sure that they've got all of those disciplinary grievance policies absolutely pinned down.
Do it now. Absolutely do it now. So I talk about in the article about obviously step one is getting your recruitment right, but you don't always know. I've been doing this for 25 years And I still have, instances where I recruited somebody and they, it just hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do is really think about, well, what objectives are you going to set them?
Mm.
So those would be obviously productivity, revenue, if you retail, your retail conversion rates, your rebooks,
Yeah.
etc. But also behaviorally.
Yeah.
You want to have somebody that's going to be a good team player, is going to give really amazing customer
Yeah.
service. And then just talk to the person about it so that they understand what those objectives are, so they get every opportunity to achieve them. I think all employers also forget that they are also on trial as well. Because sometimes somebody might self-select and say, actually, this is not the place for me. So
Yeah.
it's really good, and it doesn't have to be negative.
No.
Think about it as positive. It's what's my commitment to you and what's your commitment to me.
Yeah.
Um, Put them in the contract. I
Yeah.
mean, in the very first edition I did, I talked about getting the basics right, which is your contract, and I
Yeah.
touched on probationary periods, but really get into the habit of any new starter that comes on board now, doing those probationary objectives, meeting them informally
Yeah.
to talk about how they're performing. I mean, that's good practice anyway,
Yeah.
regardless of
Yeah.
whether someone's new or old. And then make sure you follow up. There's no point having a probationary review if you don't do anything with it.
And I think as well, it's like the communication thing, isn't it? And I know for me as an employer, I found that quite a struggle sometimes, especially with like younger employees, because they don't always want to communicate with you, or they don't feel confident in communication. And I think that we know that the younger generation now, and probably those that are coming out of college and will be coming into those junior roles and coming into first time employment, you know, we know communication has been more challenging for them. I think that, nearly every episode there's a referral back to COVID, but I do think, we still aren't that far away from it.
No,
And
we're
we are
not.
still feeling the ripples of it in things like communication skills, because we all, that generation, that sort of under 25s,
Yeah,
have
yeah,
really had to kind of not have that opportunity. And when you don't get the opportunity to communicate and connect with people all of the time,
yeah.
it changes things, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, personally, I mean, my own son,
Mm.
he was merrily doing his GCSEs and then
Yeah,
they were cancelled and that was it. He didn't see his friends for months. So
yeah,
I know, the impact that it had on
yeah,
him and is really, the struggle to
yeah.
sort of come out of that at the
It's
time.
difficult, isn't it? Because I think that we sort of, I mean, even as adults, I think a lot of us kind of like went inside ourselves a little bit. And I think you've seen across so many different levels of humans that people have struggled to come back out of it. And I think
Mm,
for kids, it was like part of their growing up was really
mm,
restricted. And so now, as an employer, we know that we're seeing people struggle with how they communicate with younger
mm.
people and old people, those, the kids of COVID kind of thing. And so we've got to make sure, haven't we, that we have everything in place. It's all clearly explained,
Absolutely.
it's documented. And I think things like, like induction is such a key part of
So,
college
so
preparation.
important. You know, it's often taken for granted,
Yeah,
especially if somebody is sort of like, trained of it, but
yeah,
you can cut hair, you can colour, you can do nails, you've
yeah,
been taught all of that. But it's the other things. It's,
yeah.
it's interactions with people, it's how things work here,
Yeah,
which
and it
is so
isn't just, oh, and the
important.
fire exits are here, and this is where the tea and coffee machine
Yeah.
is. Because that, I mean, obviously they're very important parts of induction. But it is, but getting people to understand, yeah, where everything is held in your business and where all the storage facilities are, where all the stock's kept,
Mm,
and just refreshing that, because people, they're in overload, aren't they, when they
mm,
first somewhere.
mm.
And we make assumptions, and I think probably as an employer, and you must see this a lot, that
Yeah,
employers assume that they've given that information and therefore it's been heard, dealt with, and registered. And in
absolutely. I
fact,
think
quite
that's a key
often,
point.
the
So yeah.
employer, the employee is in overwhelm. They're in a new situation, and we always, in those situations, lack confidence, feel like an imposter. There's so much mindset stuff going on when we first start a new job, and just being given a little bit of time to kind of, and a little bit of forgiveness when you do forget stuff sometimes.
Yeah, and buddy someone up with
Yeah,
someone. I mean, it can be quite daunting to go into a new organisation, particularly if you're younger
Mm.
and you've got a group of people that have worked together. They're really quite tight knit. And let's face it, that is the salon and spa
Oh,
industry.
absolutely, massively. Huge clicks everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it's hard to penetrate, isn't it, sometimes?
really
Because
hard
it's
to
that
penetrate.
outsider thing. And
Yeah.
if you haven't got the confidence and the wherewithal or the personality type that can overcome that barrier, it can make it quite difficult and make you stand out as well, can't it?
Exactly, and that's why in the winter article, I also talk about the need to get your team on board,
Yeah.
and coach them in terms of, not so much welcoming people, but sort of helping someone
Yeah.
through their probationary period,
Yeah.
and also recognizing
Yeah.
that, they're there to support them as well.
Yeah, because I think what we have to remember is that, when you have a team, you want it to be a community, and we need everybody to get on, because we
Absolutely.
are a public facing, public serving industry. And so we want our front of house to look like it's operating well and it's operating smoothly and everybody gets on. And it's real, and clients pick up, don't they, when there's a bit of agitation going on between a couple of
Oh,
people. I mean, I know
completely.
in my salon, if there was anything going on, my clients would be like, "What's happened there?"
I
Something.
know,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, I love going to where I get my hair done. I mean, not only is the standard absolutely amazing in terms of technical and creative skills, but it's so welcoming, and
yeah,
it runs like a tight ship
yeah,
because, the atmosphere, you feel it as soon as you walk in.
yeah,
So you're 100% right. Customers
yeah,
pick up on that
yeah. And we don't
completely.
want that to be a thing, because the thing is, and once customers pick up on it, and if there's one person that's been a little bit aggy about somebody, then it's like, if you when you split up with your boyfriend, isn't it, or your girlfriends are going, "Oh, he
Yeah,
was horrible," and you cut. But that kind of herd mentality kind of goes through
yeah,
the
yeah,
team, it can go through the clients, and they may not want to have treatments for that person, which then highlights there's more of a problem to
yeah,
the
yeah.
owner. And so we have to be so careful, don't we, as employers, that we are being objective and that we are
Absolutely.
actually seeing things as they really are, and that we're not being influenced by
And
external.
you know what? Behavioural issues are often the most difficult ones to deal with because they're emotive, they're
Yeah,
emotional, and they can be quite subjective. So it's
yeah,
really, really important that you kind of, and I talk about this a lot, really identify, well, what is the culture
yeah,
within the salon? How do people actually demonstrate it? Because that makes it more objective and you can substantiate it and you can put that in writing as
yeah,
part of objectives.
yeah,
So yeah, it's just so very important that
yeah,
people understand how things are done here doesn't just mean, this is like the client experience in terms of, wash and hand and arm massage, but the
yeah.
whole how we treat not just customers but the team members
Yeah,
themselves.
absolutely. And I think, like you say, having those expectations laid down from the beginning, and it is, like we need, like, systems and procedures documented. I mean, like now, you
100%.
can have apps where you have all your like stops loaded up and everything, can't you? There's so many ways of making it easy,
Completely.
and having, like, your staff handbook, so that they've always got, so and now
Yeah,
if you can have that on an app, you know, there's so many amazing things that we can do with technology now. So
totally.
just, get that somewhere that they can have on their phones, so that moment when you're not there, or their supervisor or their buddy or whatever isn't available, and everyone else is in treatment and they've got to make a decision, as much as we don't want phones in workplaces in that way, but just, get them to check. It's an open book for them all the time, isn't it, if they've got it on an app on their phone.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. As you said, there's so many ways of doing that now. Have your vision and your values underpinning that, have
yeah,
your how we work together, a little bit of a mission, and it's just
yeah,
easily understandable.
yeah. And I think so. I mean, I know some people have actually had like a learning management system where they have their like staff handbook as a course. so that the employee
Yeah,
can go through and
it
and tick it off.
reinforces
So
it.
you
Yeah,
can kind of, and that way, you know, that apart from the fact it also helps to document that no, they have been given this information and they've said that they've read it and checked it and they've understood it, and you can do that using like LMS technology. You know, that's a great way for you, you
it's
know,
brilliant.
it
I'm
dots
all
your
about
I's
that.
and crosses your T's so perfectly.
Absolutely.
And you know, and for somebody like you who's a HR specialist that gets called in when it doesn't quite go to plan, you know, for you to have that, because it's an audit trail, isn't it, of like of the history or part of the history.
And it's all about the audit trail. It
Yeah.
really, really is. If you are ever in the unfortunate position of going to an employment tribunal, it is all about what you've done and
Mm.
whether something is a
Yeah.
reasonable action. Would another reasonable employer may have made the same decision?
Yeah.
And it's all about what you've done. Did the person understand? Was it
Yeah.
specific? Does
Yeah.
this sanction align with the decision you've made?
Yeah.
One of the things I see a lot, and again, I talked about this in the very, very
Mm.
first feature that we did together, is that sometimes people don't like to deal with something and tell
Mm.
someone, yeah, this is, you
That's so
can't do
hard.
that, or it's not going wrong. And then it builds up, builds up,
I've been
builds
there.
up.
I'm not gonna lie, I've been
Something
there.
then breaks the camel's back, and then they just go, that's it, you're
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And
And I have been in that exact position.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's understandable. And in actual fact, my next feature is going to be on trying to help people have difficult
Yeah.
conversations.
Because it's so hard.
It's so hard, yeah.
And I think, especially because we are, you know, we were saying this, we're mainly female industry. So we quite often, especially as an owner, I always felt quite maternal towards my juniors and my staff that I had, because generally they were significantly younger than me. And so you kind of you feel compassion for them and you don't want to upset them because you know, like for me, there was only usually ever 3 or 4 of us that worked in my salon. And so you are a really tight-knit group, and you do end up, you know, in that kind of, I mean, not necessarily being friends with them, but you end up exchanging life stories and all that kind of stuff that probably is too personal for you then to make an objective decision. And it's very hard as a human to not do that, really hard. So then when you've got to effectively tell them
Yeah,
off, you do feel really, really responsible. And
absolutely.
it's very, very difficult. And I know it's something I struggled with a lot. And it took me probably a couple of employees and it not working out for me to actually go, no, I really do need to get my head
Yeah,
around this.
yeah. I totally agree with you. And I think sometimes that's why people shy away
Mm.
from managing a probationary period,
Yeah,
or sort of nipping things in the bud. I
yeah,
always talk about nip it in the bud, you
yeah.
know, make it clear what the expectations are, both sides,
Mhm.
and nip problems in the bud as soon as they arise. So, and I'm going to do a piece on that, in terms of, how to prepare for a challenging conversation, how to manage emotional distress, and if someone gets angry or upset, what you can, how
Yeah,
to manage that. It's actually based on ACAS mediation. I'm a trained
yeah.
ACAS mediator as
And
well.
I've
So
used ACAS so many times over the
yeah,
years.
so
And I do think as well.
I'm hopefully this edition's all about getting your probationary periods in place, um, protecting your salon and your business. And the next edition will be about, so what you do if you have to have a
Yeah.
challenging
Because it is,
conversation.
and you talking about the angry thing, I had a member of staff who, and it is, and it's a real classic of everything we've been talking about. Our interview was just like the most amazing candidate. Literally, the professionals coming straight out of college. I had 2 girls coming straight out of college, and I couldn't pick between them. And in the end, I was like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? So I took both of them. And I was so glad I did, because the first one, who was my go-to, within a couple of months, she was stood over me in my office in a very threatening manner when I asked her not to do something, and it escalated from literally a comment of me just saying, "Can you just," to, and like, yeah, I was fearful for my safety, and so with, I mean, for me that was it. Like,
Yeah, that's a red
we'd
line.
had a few conversations, but by then I'd kind of learned I need to deal with this earlier. So I had been kind of documenting, and I've been doing all the stuff I need to do and trying to have the conversations, but it escalated that day to some. We had clients in the site. It was very challenging.
It
And
sounds it.
yeah,
Yes.
and so I was going off the next morning to go up to Scotland to take my daughter for a university visit, and like, you just don't need this. I've now got to abandon ship for a week and leave this, and it's like, oh my, yeah. So I had to make decisions, and sadly I had to do that via email because I couldn't allow her back into the premises.
Yeah.
But because I wasn't going to have that level of aggression in my business, it was
Yeah.
a gross misconduct for me. And but fortunately I did have everything else documented. But
Brilliant.
I was on the phone to ACAS and doing all the stuff, and because it is
Yeah.
horrible when something
Yeah.
like that happens. And as an owner and an employer, you don't want to upset the apple cart, because you know that the moment you make that decision, their whole life unravels, and it's really not a nice thing to do.
It's not a nice thing to do. And we're all humans, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, if someone cries,
Mm.
that's something I've had to overcome in terms of learning how to respond to that and to deal with
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah. And
hopefully
people
I can
will get
pass on
upset.
some tips and tricks for it in the
Yeah,
next
that'd be
edition.
really, really handy, because I think it's very, very difficult. And I think knowing as well where your support networks are, and using things like ACAS, because they are, to employers, they're a free service and they are
Mm.
so helpful. And also, things like I always used to have, well, obviously you can have people like Rebecca, my name went then, brain gone. Yeah, but you can have people like Rebecca that are on hand who are HR specialists. There's subscription services you can have. And I used to quite often call on my insurance. I had legal cover on my insurance,
Mm.
and they covered employment law. So there's a lot of ways of like making sure you're doing the right thing. And yes, that'd be great if your next issue. It's understanding how to not emote
Yeah.
yourself. I think that's the
Yeah.
difficulty.
Yes.
Yeah, because it is hard, and I've had
It
to
is.
discipline. So because you do as an employee, you have to discipline people because they think they know what they're doing, or what you want them to do, but interpretation is not always good.
Absolutely. So as objective, clear, and transparent as
Yeah,
possible,
yeah,
and yeah, making sure you follow up.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
hopefully it never gets to that stage.
No, this is it, and this is what we want, isn't it? Is it,
Absolutely.
in the
We
sum of
want
it
to
all, and it's
nip problems
lovely.
in the bud before
Yeah,
they bite you on the bottom.
yeah, yeah. It'd be much nicer if everybody just did everything perfectly all of the time, but sadly they don't. And actually also I think it's interesting, isn't it? It's like, because I don't know if it's something that really happens much in our industry. I know when I worked in the health service, we used to have it a lot. But having like grievance and stuff, you're saying about, that it goes both ways. And if you ever have a staff member take out a grievance against you,
Mm.
how do you deal with that? Because I think, like we were saying, that tight-knit community that you have, it can make people quite reluctant to come forward and say, actually, you're causing me a problem.
Yeah, and I think it's about, looking at yourself in the mirror as an employer
Mm,
and thinking, how am I coming across?
yeah,
Have I been clear? Have I been fair?
yeah,
And give it and having that two-way communication. I mean, I talk about this in the winter edition. It's a two-way conversation.
yeah,
So how do you like to be managed? How do I get the best out of you? We're meeting to talk about your objectives. What help do you need from me?
yeah,
What am I not getting right? It's a two-way
yeah.
conversation.
Because I know, and I put my hands up, I know I got it wrong on many occasions, I'm sure. And I'm sure anybody that worked for me would say, no, you were really horrible, Sue, or you did this, or, and I'm sure there's going to be things, I know there's going to be things that I did that they didn't like. But you have to kind of balance it with the fact
Yeah,
that it's your business and it's your rules,
yeah.
and you can't always be popular. It's not, that isn't what being an employer is about. You need to be respected
Yeah.
and have people understand where you're coming from, kind of thing. So,
Absolutely. I think that's the key, understanding where you're coming from. Somebody might not like something,
yeah,
but if you can help them to understand why you've put that in place.
yeah, yeah. It's there's employment is there's just so much to it, isn't there? So I know we were saying before we started recording that there's was it the SSP, isn't it? That is
Yes, I did
coming,
want to
and that change is
just
coming.
give a reminder to everybody that on the 6th of April this year, currently there's a 3-day waiting period to
Yeah.
receive statutory sick pay. That is being abolished. And now you will need to pay sick pay from day one of sickness. So I just wanted to let everybody know about the removal of those 3 days. So again, that's an impact on your wage bill.
And so can you, because it's been a long time since I've employed, so can you still claim back the SSP in the same way you used to be able to?
Nothing's changed in terms of the actual money. It's just in terms of they're abolishing that 3-day waiting period.
Okay. So yeah, so just go and sort of like make sure you've got everything in
Make
place.
sure yes. Yeah.
More I's to dot, more T's to cross.
Absolutely, yes.
But
yes.
that's the joy of being an employer.
It is, unfortunately.
Yes. And anyway, so let's leave that there, and we will chat next time about some of those awkward conversations.
Yes.
And how to get around it. That's going to be an interesting one. I can't wait actually to see like your perspective on how we do that, because I think we do need help with that an awful lot. So I look forward to our spring conversation.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me.
That's okay. Thank you so much.